All right, so ready for a deep dive. You might think you know this one, but I'm telling you, there's way more to it. We're talking playing cards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but not just like how to play, more like who.
Yeah.
Who are these figures on these cards?
Yeah, I'm intrigued.
So our source material for this deep dive is this video, and it's claiming that every single face card actually represents a specific historical or mythological figure.
Huh. I mean, just off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone who, like, the Jack of Hearts is supposed to be or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes you wonder, right? Like, are they just random faces?
They just made up?
Or are they actually, like, secret portraits of some of, like, the most influential figures in history?
Okay, so let's jump right in with the kings. This video says the King of Hearts is Alexander the Great.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we all know Alexander the Great for his military conquests.
Right.
But this card supposedly goes a lot deeper than that.
Deeper?
So the video is saying that the King of Hearts, especially with that sword kind of going through his head, that's actually supposed to represent Alexander's inner turmoil and his eventual downfall.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so it's not just about, like, the outward success. It's about, like, the hidden costs of all that ambition.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's like the weight of leadership. There are a lot of theories about how Alexander the Great actually died, and some suggest his mental state might have played a part in it.
Really?
Which would add another layer to this whole image of, like, the sword through the head.
Right.
Okay, let's go to the King of Spades. This one's connected to the biblical King David.
King David, okay.
And what's interesting here is that they're not just focusing on him as a warrior, but also as this, like, deep thinker.
Someone who's very strategic. I mean, it makes sense if you think about it, because the spade itself has always been associated with intelligence and strategy. So it's not like a random choice. And if you look closely at how the King of Spades holds his sword, it's actually different from the other kings.
Oh, is it? I've never noticed that.
Yeah, it's more guarded. He holds it closer to his head, almost like he's thinking, you know?
Yeah, it does make him seem more contemplative.
Yeah.
Like he's weighing all these difficult decisions.
Exactly. And you know, King David's reign was complex. He had his internal battles too. It's all reflected in that imagery.
Okay, so we've got the conqueror, we've got the deep thinker. What about the King of Clubs?
Well, the King of Clubs is often shown as this calm but resolute figure, and he's linked to Charlemagne. You know, a lot of people consider him the father king of Europe.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And the way the King of Clubs is standing with the crown and, you know, that firm stance, it really embodies Charlemagne's vision of a unified and powerful Europe. And his legacy, I mean, we still feel it today.
Okay, so conqueror, strategist, unifier. Who's left? The King of Diamonds.
Yeah, this one's a big one. It's linked to Julius Caesar. Oh, wow. Ambition, political genius. Veni, Vidi, Vici.
Exactly. And you can totally see that ambition in the King of Diamonds' face, that stoic expression.
Right.
But you know, Caesar's story doesn't end with just triumph. It ends with betrayal and assassination.
That's right. So are they saying there's a warning here too? Like, don't get too ambitious?
That's what the video seems to suggest. Like, the King of Diamonds is also this reminder that ambition unchecked can be dangerous, and even with the greatest power, there can be betrayal lurking behind it.
Wow. So much depth to these cards, I never even... Okay, so we talked about the kings. Now let's move on to the queens. They've got some pretty amazing stories to tell as well. Starting with the Queen of Hearts. This one is connected to Judith, a biblical heroine.
Oh, Judith. She's known for her incredible bravery and intelligence.
So not your typical damsel in distress.
No, not at all. Judith's story is all about taking charge. I mean, she saved her people by going right into the enemy camp and...
Well, let's just say she took decisive action.
Wow. So maybe defying expectations is part of the Queen of Hearts.
Absolutely. She used her intelligence and her courage to become a leader and protect her people.
So it's not just about love and romance. It's about strong female leadership. What about the Queen of Spades?
This one is linked to Athena, the Greek goddess.
Athena, yeah, wisdom, war, strategy.
The ultimate combination of brains and brawn.
But how does that connect to the Queen of Spades?
Well, think about the way she's usually depicted. The spear, the shield, that look of determination. The video is arguing that the Queen of Spades, just like Athena, is this powerful warrior, but she's also a brilliant strategist.
Okay, yeah, I see it. Intelligence, strength. And didn't Athena play a huge role in the Trojan War?
Oh, absolutely. She was a key part of guiding the Greeks to victory.
So strategic thinking, that's a big part of what the Queen of Spades is supposed to embody.
Exactly.
Okay, so we got powerful women, leaders, warriors. What about the Queen of Clubs?
This one takes us back to the Old Testament, to the story of Rachel. And unlike the previous two queens, Rachel's story is much more personal. It's about the complexities of womanhood: love, sacrifice, longing for a child, the challenges she faced within her own family.
So maybe the Queen of Clubs represents a different kind of strength, that inner strength it takes to overcome those personal obstacles.
Exactly. It's about resilience, about enduring hardship, and that is a kind of strength.
Okay, and lastly, we have Queen of Diamonds.
And this one might surprise you. It's Athena again.
Athena again.
But this time the focus is different. While the Queen of Spades highlights her warrior spirit, the Queen of Diamonds is all about her wisdom and intellect.
Okay.
So think of the shield not just as protection, but as representing all the knowledge and strategic thinking that Athena had.
Like two sides of the same coin, warrior and brilliant strategist. And those two cards are showing us those different sides.
Exactly. The Queen of Diamonds is emphasizing the power of the mind, using your intelligence to overcome obstacles.
Wow. It's incredible how much you can find in a deck of cards. Leadership, power, the whole human experience.
And we've only just scratched the surface. We still have the jacks, the numbered cards, even the jokers. Who knows what other historical or mythological figures might be hidden in this deck?
I know. It's like this whole new world.
So before the break, we were looking at the kings and queens and all those potential connections to these like larger than life figures.
It's crazy. I mean, even without knowing any of this backstory, I've always felt drawn to the images on playing cards.
Right.
Like each card has its own personality.
It's true. You don't always think about it, but there's a lot of artistry in playing cards, and those little details really help bring out the character of whoever they're supposed to represent.
So what else is there? What other cards does this video tell us about?
Well, one that's pretty interesting is the Jack of Spades.
Okay.
It's usually shown with the stern look on his face, sword held up high.
Yeah.
And it's linked to Ogier the Dane.
Ogier the Dane.
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard that name, but remind me who that is.
He's this legendary knight from Charlemagne's court. A lot of myths and legends about him, shows up in medieval romances and poems and all that.
Okay, yeah.
He was known for his strength and loyalty to Charlemagne.
Okay.
But also, eventually, for his disillusionment with courtly life.
Oh, so it's not just a simple story of a brave knight.
Not quite. It's more complex than that. There's loyalty, but there's also this hint of disillusionment.
And do we see that in the Jack of Spades?
I think so. He's definitely a warrior, but if you look at his face, there's almost like a sadness there, a sense of being tired of it all.
Like there's a whole other story behind that card.
Exactly. And that idea of hidden depths, well, it keeps going with the Jack of Clubs. This one is supposed to be Lancelot.
Lancelot.
Yeah.
Everyone knows Lancelot. Bravery, his love for Guinevere, the tragic ending. It's amazing how these cards can connect to these stories we all know.
It really is. And this video says the Jack of Clubs embodies both Lancelot's chivalrous ideals and his internal struggles.
Because he was sworn to uphold honor and justice.
But he's also consumed by this forbidden love. And it leads to tragedy.
So again, it's not just about being a hero.
It's about the light and shadow within these figures. They represent the whole human experience.
Yeah. So the Jack of Clubs isn't just about bravery. It's about how even the most noble figures can have flaws.
That even the best of us make mistakes. Face tough choices.
Heroism isn't about being perfect.
Right. It's about trying to do what's right even when it's hard.
Okay. So we've had Ogier, Lancelot, who was the Jack of Diamonds,
This one is said to be Hector,
the Trojan Prince.
the one who fought against the Greeks in the Trojan War.
Yeah, he's often seen as like the tragic hero of that whole war because he was brave, but he's also loyal to Troy, even though he knew they might lose.
Yeah. And the video says that the Jack of Diamonds embodies that courage, that sense of duty, accepting your fate.
So all the Jacks seem to represent figures who are kind of caught in the middle.
They're facing these impossible choices, dealing with internal struggles,
So even in a deck of cards, we're seeing echoes of real human experiences.
making decisions, balancing duty and what you want, facing things head on.
And that's what I think is so cool about these connections. They remind us that even these ordinary, everyday objects can have so much depth.
And they can connect us back to stories and ideas that have been around for centuries.
So is there more? What about the numbered cards? Are there hidden meanings for those too?
Our source material doesn't go into a ton of detail about the numbered cards specifically,
Oh, okay.
but it does hint that the entire deck is part of a bigger system of symbols.
Ooh. What does that mean?
Well, they're suggesting that the 4 suits themselves represent different parts of human experience.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Hearts are emotion, spades are intellect, clubs are strength, action, and diamonds are material wealth or power.
Okay, so it's not just the people on the cards. It's about what the suits mean too. Different parts of life.
Exactly. And it makes sense if you think about how a lot of card games work.
Yeah, like some games, hearts are trump. But in other games, spades are more powerful.
Right. So different parts of life might be more important at different times.
It's like the game itself is a metaphor for life.
Exactly. Using our emotions and our minds and all our resources to figure things out and get where we want to go.
I never thought about playing cards this way before. It's amazing.
It just shows that there's always something new to learn, even about things you think you already know.
So listener, what do you think? Do you see playing cards differently now? Do you think about all this when you're playing?
It's definitely something to think about. Even the most everyday things can have these hidden stories, just waiting to be found.
It's wild to think about how much history and mythology can be packed into something as simple as a deck of cards.
Right. Like, it makes you realize how powerful stories are, how they show up everywhere, even when you don't expect them to.
And I think what's really hit me is that playing cards aren't just games. They're like little pieces of art, each one with its own story to tell about people and life and everything.
Yeah, it's like each card is like a window into these huge stories about humanity. And it makes you wonder, why playing cards? Why have all these figures and stories been attached to them for so long?
That's a great question. I mean, nobody knows for sure, but there are some theories out there. One is that playing cards, the way they have suits and ranks and all that, might have come from older ways of fortune telling.
Oh, fortune telling. Yeah, that makes sense. Like the cards themselves have some kind of mystical power.
Right. And those readings would have been even more powerful if they were linked to famous figures from history and mythology. Like you're tapping into the wisdom of the past to understand the present.
Like having a personal oracle right there in your pocket.
And even if you don't believe in fortune telling, there's still something cool about the way cards can spark your imagination and connect you to all these timeless stories.
It's like you're playing a game, but you're also getting a history lesson at the same time.
Exactly.
It also makes you think about the whole act of playing cards. Like it's something people do together. It's social. You connect with others.
You laugh, you compete a little bit. There's just something about gathering around a table with some friends, shuffling the cards, and seeing what happens.
And if you think about all the symbolism we've been talking about, those games become something more. It's like you're not just playing with cards, you're playing with ideas.
With these big, important themes about life.
Yeah, thinking about the choices you make, the problems you face, the good times you have.
And maybe it's even a way to remember that we're all connected to the people who came before us.
Their stories are all around us, just waiting to be discovered.
That's a really cool way to think about it.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm just left feeling amazed by how much depth there is in the everyday things around us. You know, the things we take for granted. It makes you realize that there are always surprises waiting to be found, and that the stories we tell shape how we understand the world.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, a big thank you to you, the listener, for coming along with us on this exploration. We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of playing cards and all the fascinating figures they might represent. And until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep uncovering all those hidden stories that are out there.